Hello, everyone. It's Michael Jaco with Unleashing Intuition Secrets, joined once again by Jim Manning on the anniversary of JFK assassination, which is actually tomorrow, right, Jim?
That's right, tomorrow.
Yeah, tomorrow.
62
So
years.
60, 62?
Yep, 62
Wow,
years. Mhm.
that's amazing. So I mean, you are an incredible researcher. Um, we've done a lot of shows, and you've done
Sure.
a lot of interviews with James Files, who we
That's
know
right.
that was behind the picket fence.
Yeah, James. I spent about 5 hours up in Lincoln, Illinois, filming his for lack of a better term, I guess, deathbed confession. And he came out with so much that he couldn't do before because he always thought that if he admitted to anything else, that he would be arrested. And of course, he could say that he killed Kennedy because they would never be able to arrest him because that would blow the Warren Commission out of the water. So he was able to get by with that. But since he's in hospice, he knows he doesn't have much time, and so he wanted to come out with everything. But uh, like myself, it was only in recent history that I knew that he was a 28-year member of the Central Intelligence Agency, and he called in daily to David Atlee Phillips, and wherever David Atlee Phillips was, he got that call. If they needed him, David would tell him, "Go to the airport. There's tickets waiting for you." And if they didn't need him, he'd say, "Well, have a nice day." And his number, I believe, was 4214, close to that anyway. And he even had one of those black cards, didn't have anything on it, but it could be used all over the country and maybe the world by people that are deep and dark for medical assistance of any kind and transportation. And I don't know if he still has that card or not, but I heard he had one of those. So many things that uh, come out that make you realize that he was the real deal. Yeah,
Yeah, most definitely. And he's talked on our shows before, where he was
yeah,
part of assassination teams. Former President uh, Bush Bush Senior,
yeah.
George H.W. Bush. So I've done a lot of research. I've had a lot of people on my show that said that he was not born in America. He was born in Germany, and his father was German, and their last name was Scherf, and they changed it to Bush when they came to
That's
America.
true. I
Yeah,
believe
so you
that
know
too.
about
Yeah,
that too. Oh, good.
yeah,
So,
yeah.
and of course, Jimmy Files was recruited by George H.W. Bush to be part of this assassin team, and that's where I know
Yeah,
that Jimmy has gone way down that rabbit hole, talking about all of the things that he was involved in with this assassination squad. Now, when I was in the SEAL Team 6, we would get called up at a moment's notice, and we fly away. We were trained to incredible levels. I've seen and talked to Jimmy, and he is of the same
yeah.
caliber and the same training as I had as a SEAL Team 6 guy, the very top. So he had the top training, and he was part of a military. Like, we can't say he was part of the U.S.
That's
government
true.
really, but he was part of another, I guess, a U.S. corporation for better terms. What are your thoughts on that?
I don't have him on the screen.
Yeah, I can hear you. Go ahead. It's a little bit of a gap.
Well, anyway, today's problems, and one of the things that we are trying to do at this point in time is to make a connection with the oversight committee. You're back, Mike. You were off my screen for a while. I didn't know if you were off. Anyway, just filling in until you got back. Anyway, we are trying to get through to them, and we got a call back from them yesterday, and they want us to send up a request to, I guess, one of her assistants, asking to be able to testify before that committee ends its investigation. And I believe that it would be a good thing for the country because everybody in the world's entitled to an opinion. And I never cared if somebody didn't like what my opinion was, but I think the whole idea of this country is that people tell what they want to say and you accept it or you don't. But the idea that you won't even let competent people, the Warren Commission half-heartedly studied this thing for 6 months, and basically the Alan Dulles could have written up this whole thing probably in 3 days himself. But anyway, they took 6 months, and I took 60 years, and it's amazing to me that with the 150 YouTubes that I've done and all of the evidence that corroborated what I said is out there now on those YouTubes. And not one time is a newspaper columnist or a television news service. I mean, you wonder why nobody does anything, and it's because of the conspiracy theory thing. Everybody's a nut, and but I've done some recent research on the conspiracy things, and I came up with some FOIAs where the CIA had to give information to somebody that asked about the term conspiracy theory. And while it was actually invented in the 1800s by a philosopher named Popper, it sort of lied dormant for a long time. And probably it was Frank Wisner, one of the guys that started the CIA, who brought that back up again because they kept looking at what Goebbels did with Hitler, which was to tell Hitler, you just keep saying what you want to say, keep saying it over and over and over again, and pretty soon everybody's going to believe it. And if you think about it, that happens a lot. And but in that FOIA, it said that it explained to the agents how to do that. And I'm gonna get a copy of that, and I'll send you one, Mike, too.
Okay.
And,
Yeah.
So we hope that we'll get an invite to go up there and just tell them what we know and show the evidence and stay as long as they want, answer any questions. I told them that we would get sworn in, and that it's possible that if they wanted to, maybe Jim would even be included by computer, and he could get sworn in and answer all the questions that the people on the committee might have. And so I think that right now, with the situation the way it is in the country, there'll be a lot of heat on the president in the next month or two. And if he were to make an announcement relatively soon, actually tomorrow would be the best day, that there will be people coming up to that oversight committee who have another direction that they want to look at. And he might be the president who, after 62 years, brought out the truth. And that's the kind of thing that probably would help him, whether you're a Democrat or a Republican.
Absolutely. Well, let's see if we can get Jim. Can you see if you can talk now?
Can you hear me now?
Yeah, we got you.
Good. Okay. Well, that's great. I missed part of what you were saying because of our audio issue, but over the weekend I went to my 45th college class reunion at the Citadel, and I met with Nancy Mace, Congresswoman, Republican from the 1st District of South Carolina. She's going to run for governor in South Carolina, and I'm going to support her. And we're hoping that I've got her Director of Operations contact, and I'm going to send him a package of material, including this podcast, and hope that, you know, it'll also increase our chances that we'll get an opportunity to speak to Congress about and get Jim and Pam to, I guess by computer because of Jim's medical condition, to testify before Congress. But to me, if they know about it and they're not willing to at least listen to what Jim has to say, you know, who am I? I was 5 years old when Kennedy was assassinated, but I found about this information, you know, from our previous calls when I was with the state police in Virginia, and tried to kind of make it public. And it just seems like at every corner, you know, there's some kind of opposition that wants to, that doesn't even want to hear the story. That's the interesting thing. It's not like they say, okay, well, come on in and sit down and tell us what happened. And then they, you know, I guess they don't want to spend the rest of the year feeding some kind of disinformation. You know, the old motto, deny everything, admit nothing, and make counter accusations. So, you know, when you broadcast the truth, you know, then they've got to spend all this energy on, look what they did with Lee Harvey Oswald. I mean, they murdered him and then murdered other witnesses. They covered up all the physical evidence involving damage to the limo. They took the rifle. They took JFK's body. One of the things James Files, I talked to him day before yesterday at lunchtime, him and Pam, and he wanted me to make a point, and a lot of people don't understand this, but that in 1963, now think about this for a second, because I wanted to, you know, make sure that that's Nancy Mace. She's a Republican conservative. She was the first woman to graduate from the Citadel, class of 1999, and she's running for governor in South Carolina. But she's a great person. She's the one, if you go on YouTube and put in her name, Nancy Mace, and Cheadle, the former director of the Secret Service after the attempted assassination of Butler, she's the one that ripped Cheadle in Congress during that interview when Cheadle gave all those BS answers. Oh, we'll have to get back with you. And she wasn't answering anything. And they all called for Cheadle's resignation. And I personally think the Secret Service was involved. I hate to say that, but I know they were involved in the JFK assassination, so why wouldn't they be involved in, you know. But back to the point that James wanted me to make on in 1963, and there's a lot of your audience members that are going to roll their eyes when they hear me say this, but in 1963, technically it was not against the law to kill the president. Let that sink in. In 1963, it was a murder in Texas, and Dallas, Texas police had the jurisdiction to investigate and prosecute that case. The Secret Service took all the evidence away from them, the car, the gun that they claimed, which was not really the gun used, but you know, they took all this evidence and then made up this story over several months, the Warren Commission, and said it was Lee Harvey Oswald from behind, 3 shots, case closed, he's dead. No court case, no testimony, no anything. And then all these other witnesses that saw, people that said, hey, I heard a gunshot from behind the picket fence on the grassy knoll. Like 40 or 50 people said that. But none of those people were interviewed by the Warren Commission. And if they were, their testimony was not included in the Warren Commission. So who could Lee Harvey Oswald orchestrate that after his death? No. I mean, it just shows that the government was behind it all. But Jimmy wanted me to make the point that in '63, it was, not technically, there was no federal law about killing elected officials or the president or whatever. There is now. Ironically, it was Lyndon Johnson that was behind that. That picture that you just showed a second ago was a reenactment with James Files in 2020 of him standing behind the picket fence on the grassy knoll. That is a plastic Zytel Black XP 100 Remington stock that did not have a barreled action. And at the time, he was a convicted felon, so he couldn't have a firearm, but he's posing for that photograph. You can see the briefcase on the ground that simulates, the briefcase that he had the day that he killed John F. Kennedy. But that's a reenactment from about 8 to 10 feet from the corner of the picket fence, where that makes a 90-degree corner. From that shot, it's about 29.3 yards. That flyer that you skipped over, if you go back, go these one at a time, and I'll talk through them real quickly. This is a flyer that, God bless her soul, Barbara Honegger, put in the Dallas Morning News on Sunday morning. I think that would have been the 18th or 19th of November of 2023. And it showed in there that on November 21st, Tuesday, we were going to do this, presentation at the Homewood Suites by Hilton in Dallas. And we did that to standing room only. Members of the news media and JFK researchers and everything. It took 5 hours, and everybody stayed the whole time. And then we had a get-together on the grassy knoll, and James and Pam were selling their books on the grassy knoll, the 60th anniversary of the JFK assassination, and the news media wouldn't talk to him. Now, what does that tell you? So, it's important that President Trump and Anna Paulina Luna, the representative from Florida, that if they really want to get to the bottom line, they need to have Jim Manning and myself and especially James Files testify before this committee. And they can discredit him all they want after they listen to him, but if they put it on national television and let him testify, by some kind of, by satellite from his home or from a hotel or something near where he lives, they could get the truth out there and then let the people decide, what it is. But if they don't let him testify, because he's one of the only people that I can think of other than Felix Rodriguez that was alive in 1963 that's still alive today. And not only was he an eyewitness, but he's the guy that pulled the trigger. So, you can read 10,000 books about the JFK assassination, but you won't really know what happened. And it's so compartmentalized. You know how that is in operations. Only the few people that were involved know the real truth about it. If you want to know the truth, you have to listen to the people that actually did it. But after he told the story, you could jump up and down, call him a liar if you want, but, the people need to hear his story. A lot of people believe him, and there's a handful that don't, and it's because these professional people that have tried to discredit him, like the story that came out that said that he was at the hospital in Chicago tending to his daughter, Kathy, was being born in November of '63. Well, that's not true. That was a story to discredit, it was make counter accusations, right? His story that he was there. Kathy was born in '66, and Jimmy's really funny about it because he says, hey, stop the presses. Kennedy wasn't killed till '66, because Kathy wasn't born until '66. So the story that's out there that he was in Chicago because his daughter was being born is just pure BS. And but some people will hear that one thing and go, oh yeah, see, he's lying, which I haven't ever heard him lie about anything. You want me to talk about these pictures real quick? I can't hear you now. Can you hear me?
Yeah. So I remember one time, I'm gonna have to mute you because it's
Go ahead.
strange. All right. So I remember one time Jimmy came on. He was talking about free falling and stuff like that. And as a free faller, high altitude, low opening type guy, I know how that works. And he was talking about that a mission that he was on. So this picture right here is a B-54 Saddam. It's a backpack nuke. And this is obviously a guy free falling. So I was trained in all this. So all the stuff that I've heard Jimmy talk about over the years, it's like I said, he is trained to the highest levels of the military industrial complex's capabilities. And then he's told stories of how they would come get him. I've been called up. A helicopter came to get me one time. He talked about that. And I was, taken to a airport where there was a jet waiting. So that's only reserved for people on the highest levels. And so obviously he was at that level doing missions on that level. And we've talked about a lot of these missions. One of the things I want to get deeper into, and I know Jim Manning has a lot of this information, and it's been shared by Jimmy with us on a certain level, where he was involved with Ted Kennedy and the Chappaquiddick, incident, and he talked about that, and he gave detail that no one else could know. I mean, like they told him, you can't go and reveal this until we get on the ferry 2 hours from now and leave, and that's why there was a delay in him, reporting, Mary Jo Kopechne, I think that's her name. So all these different things he's talking about. Now, what I like to get deeper into, and one of the things that we've been holding back on, is how he was involved in other missions, and as part of this assassin team, and maybe we can bring some of that out.
I can tell you about one. He most people are not familiar with how it works. You may be an employee of the CIA, in which case you get paid like everybody else does in a check. However, a lot, and maybe most of the people that do the dark work are what they call contractors, but they used to call them mercenaries, which Jim liked. And so he was that type of guy. He would be in Illinois, and he'd be working along with his buddies in the outfit. And when he would call every day to David Atlee Phillips, and no matter where David Atlee Phillips was in the world, he got that call. And then he would have a signal with James that if he needed to go someplace, he would just tell him there's tickets at the airport at Midway. And if he didn't need anything, he would say, well, have a nice day. And Jim would report through getting to him that he was the Sandman, and he had, I think it was 4412 or something close to that. His number, he'll tell us when it comes on. And so that was one day they called him, and he had to go to Washington, D.C. And the problem was that there was a Soviet colonel, KGB colonel, that was stationed at the embassy there, had been there for a while. And he had the police got the CIA involved because he was a colonel in the KGB. And so he had roughed up a few street women after he had his way with them. And then some of them got pretty damaged. And so they were so damaged that they actually reported it. So the detectives ran down who it was. Then when they found out who it was, they brought the CIA in on it. Now, what they did was they set up a honey trap, and the honey trap was where they used a girl, and they used somebody that had done work for them, and that a lot of people who have followed these things in history know. She was the lady that ran money and information back and forth between Sam Giancana and Jack Kennedy. I'm going a little bit. What was that name again? Her name was, Jim said, but she worked, and the tech found the bodies that they had found recently, and they so and he took her to a motel, and of course they were outside, and they were listening, and he started to beat her up pretty bad, and so that's why Jim was there. So Jim went in and got the girl out, and with that, he was in the car. They had arrested this guy, and they had put him in the back of a car that they had. He was in cuffs, and he had a CIA agent on both sides of him, and Jim was in a jump seat facing them, and he was talking to the guy about we're going to turn you into a double spy. You're going to work for us now. And the guy was laughing at him and making insinuations that Jim didn't like. And he said, "You can't do nothing to me. I got immunity. I have diplomatic immunity." And he says, "We can't do nothing to you. We can't, blah, 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 do nothing to you." And he pulled out his 45, pulled it up, and 6 inches from his head, he shot him between the eyes. And unfortunately, that temper tantrum was a little hard for him to deal with David Atlee Phillips and his bosses. But anyway, that gives you an example of the kind of things that he did.
Yeah. So I know a lot of people would not survive that. In the CIA.
Yeah, right.
Yeah. So he must have been very high up. They must have really loved him a lot. So, and that's why he's still alive, because he's always done a very good job.
Name of the girl came to me. Judith Exner. Judith Exner Campbell was in there somewhere too, but that's the name. And she was pretty famous for being a favorite of Jack Kennedy and both Sam Giancana. Anyway, Jim said she slept with a 45 under her pillow. So she must have been a tough girl.
No doubt.
Yeah.
So there's many stories like that. I know that you, like you said, you talked to Jimmy for quite some time, and he revealed a lot of stuff. Now, he was hoping to reveal this stuff to some type of commission, and maybe that will still happen. We're hoping that will happen. So we've touched base with a lot of different people, but we know with this administration, I guess they have a lot on their plate, so they're being very choosy what they focus on, unfortunately. Yeah. But like you said, Jim Manning, that's tomorrow would be a good time for them to go, okay, we're really going to open this can of worms on this. So that would be great. Now there's another one, and I'm gonna move over to Jim Scott. And Jim, you talked to me one time about Hold on a sec. Before you unmute, Jim, let me say, and then I'll mute because it's a feedback. There you go. Thank you. So when you were telling me about the train incident, I think in an African country, South Africa or something, I forget where it was. Is that something that we can talk about? And then all of these different things, maybe when Jimmy comes on, he can verify. Go ahead.
Okay, so can you hear me okay? Okay, so what you're talking about is the Blue Train massacre in South Africa. And the Blue Train is a luxury train similar to the Orient Express. It's a very famous train. It is blue in color. You can look it up online. If anybody in the audience wants to look at it. There is a story online if you can find it about this. But if I remember correctly, Jimmy led a 14-man team, and they had their target was members of the government in South Africa, and basically the entire cabinet was going to ride the Blue Train from one point to another, and they infiltrated the train as passengers, and when it left one stop and was headed to another stop, where there was some distance, where they had they had some time, they began assassinating the members of the train. And once the train got to the next stop, as the people got off the train, there was a team waiting for them there to ambush people getting off the train. And actually, witnesses to this said that they could tell that some of the gunmen in the team were Caucasians that were in blackface, that they were wearing makeup to look like blacks, and then others had like balaclavas on to cover their face and maybe makeup around their eyes, that kind of thing. But there was an explosive charge that derailed the train, and it went off the tracks down into a lower area like rolled off the tracks. And then the ambush continued, but virtually the entire cabinet of South Africa was murdered in that operation. That's called the Blue Train Massacre. Some of the other stuff, if you remember, Jim's history is 28 years doing on and off with the agency. He's worked, and in the agency, they like when they talk about Central America, they call it the Central Hemisphere or the Southern Hemisphere, that kind of thing. So there was operations. There was a mission called the Dawson Island Raid down off the tip of South America. There's a small island called Dawson Island. One of the people incarcerated there was Orlando Letelier. He was basically kind of rescued from the prison and brought back to the United States. They turned him into like a double agent. And then he worked in the embassy of Chile in Washington for a while, but apparently was not performing the way they wanted him to. And after rescuing him at the prison at Dawson Island and putting him as a double agent in the embassy of Chile, they decided to kill him. And James made he went to the Falcando Mining Company in the Dominican Republic and got apparently like a couple cases of 60% nitro dynamite, and he made 2 bombs out of that dynamite, and they had the same lot number. Now, he would be the only person other than that foreman that gave him the dynamite that would know that. And both bombs, the one that bombed Cubana flight, I think 455, it was a Cuban airliner that was blown up, and all the people, I think 73 people died in the crash. And then the bombing on Embassy Row, I believe it was September of 1976, assassinated like a Chevy Malibu, I think. There was a couple other people in the vehicle with him, but the vehicle blew up, and I think it killed Orlando Letelier and injured the other folks. Maybe it killed, there were 3 people in the car, I think, in it. Ronnie Moffat or something like that, and maybe his girlfriend or wife or something. And it killed 2 of them, and 1 was injured, something like that. And but Orlando Letelier was killed, and it was right on Embassy Row, middle of the day, you know, that kind of stuff. So Chappaquiddick, as you've alluded to, he's, you know, told us a story about what really happened there. Ted Kennedy drove, he was basically tricked to bring Mary Jo Kopechne down to the Dyke Bridge. When they got down there, they smothered Mary Jo Kopechne, put her in the back seat of that black Oldsmobile, and then Jimmy claims that he drove the car off the bridge into the tidal pool, and Ted Kennedy wasn't even in the car. So what's really ridiculous is when he gave the press conference a couple days later, you remember he was going to run for president in 72, and the CIA needed some way to control him. So he's basically became an accomplice to murder. The rumor was Mary Jo was pregnant by him. So they were doing him a favor by having him, you know, having her go away. But the problem is he caused it. And so basically, when I was a Virginia State Trooper, he would have been charged with manslaughter and gotten 5 years in prison for killing somebody by driving recklessly. And everybody speculated that a long time before he reported the incident through his lawyer to law enforcement after he ran the car off, because they found the car in the tidal pool the next morning, and the sheriff's department was down there and everything, recovering the car, found the body and all that kind of stuff. But he didn't report it till well after that. But the reason why was because he needed to get Jimmy and the other two guys on the team, which was E. Howard Hunt and Frank Sturgis, he needed to get off the island, because the only way off the island was the ferry. And the only reason that he turned when he came up, if you research this and look at the map of Chappaquiddick, from the cabin or the cottage that they rented, that had the party at, if you drive up to the T intersection, it's a left-hand turn to go to the ferry. But like at whatever it was, 11, 12 o'clock at night, I think the last run of the ferry was midnight or something like that. Ted Kennedy didn't turn left and go to the ferry. He turned right and went down to the Dyke Bridge to meet E. Howard Hunt, like he had been called and, you know, told to do or whatever. So you take a young girl down to a dark one-lane bridge with no side protection in the middle of the night. You know, I mean, that's kind of weird to begin with. But the thing is, there's no reason for him to drive in that direction and drive across that bridge, because all you do is go out to the beach. That's not a way to drive off the island. That's a dead-end road. So there's no reason, if he was going to the ferry to leave the island with Mary Jo, there's no reason for him to make the right turn and go to the bridge. But Mary Jo Kopechne was murdered. If you look on Wikipedia, it says right in there that the cause of death was suffocation, not drowning.
Wow.
So she was dead. Wow. She was dead before the car went in the water. And then now Ted Kennedy was trapped by the CIA. And I think that they were involved with killing John F. Kennedy Jr. as well. There's rumors there was an explosive device in his airplane. But he had no business flying that airplane in night IFR conditions, because he wasn't IFR rated. But if you'll run your arrow again right there behind that disheveled-looking, long-haired guy with his hands, which you can't really tell in the photograph, are bound by right behind Che Guevara, which was the Cuban, you know, he was a revolutionary. That's James Files. And the picture of the guy standing to the left, which would be to Che Guevara's right, that's Felix Rodriguez. He's a famous CIA officer. And when he tells the story about this, he says that some Bolivian captain, you know, killed Che Guevara. Well, he's wearing a Bolivian captain uniform. You know, I mean, he's the one that did it. And after they killed Che, they drug him into the kitchen. Jimmy maybe tell the story when he comes on at the turn of the hour. They cut Che's hand off. One was mailed to Fidel Castro, and the other one was mailed to the CIA Langley headquarters. And to this day, it's my understanding there's a glass jar with formaldehyde with Che Guevara's hand in it on the mantle at either Felix's house or at his little museum down there in Miami. This is a famous picture that was taken January 22nd, not November 22nd, but January 22nd, 1963, in the Luna Hotel in Mexico City. This is the only known photograph of the CIA's Operation 40 group, and it's only part of the guys that were on the crew. On the left side of the picture, bending over with a cigarette in his right hand, kind of laughing, is Felix Rodriguez. Now, in a previous show, I think I misspoke. The next guy is Porter Goss, and I said it was Barry Seal. I had him reversed. The guy with the glasses on is Porter Goss. He was the director of the CIA later under George W. Bush, because his daddy, George H.W. Bush, told him to make Porter his, and he knew, because they were, George H.W. Bush was the recruiter for Operation 40. And he recruited Jose Correas Posada and Jimmy Files. At the time, his name was James Earl Sutton. But that third guy on the left side is Barry Seal, the pilot that was made famous in the movie American Made. It was a Tom Cruise movie, flying guns to Nicaragua and other places in Central America, and flying loads of cocaine back into Mena, Arkansas. And the CIA connection there was Bill and Hillary Clinton. Across the table from Barry Seal, the third guy on the right side, is James Files. So if you've just seen a picture of James Files with Che Guevara and Felix Rodriguez, the other Operation 40 guy that's on the left side here, the first guy, you've seen a picture of him with Che Guevara in Central America, and you've seen a picture of him with the Operation 40 group in January of 63 in Mexico City. They were already planning to kill Kennedy. Who in the world would not believe Jimmy's story that he was part of the CIA assassination group? I mean, how in the hell can he? That's not photoshopped. I don't care who you are. People say, oh, that's not him. It is him. Okay. Felix Rodriguez is still alive, and he did a lot of stuff, in service as the CIA as well. A lot of dirty black ops, right? And they
Right.
do
So
it
let me jump over to
go ahead.
Jim Manning and ask him. There's a reason why Jimmy Files and all these other Assassin 40 group, and probably more, later in time, were taking down all of these governments like that. And it's the same as when they took JFK down. They're controlling governments around the world. So the Schur family, Nazi family, eventually would get to the point where he's the head of the CIA, George H.W. Bush, and then the President of the United States. So this is obviously a compromise of our country on a massive level. And I know, Jim, you have done such incredible research. Your whole life you've been involved in this. Tell us your thoughts on what is going on.
Well, the deep state, and nobody knows exactly what the deep state is, but I believe that the group that they had a bank. There was a number of people's names that you would recognize that were part of this bank. In fact, J. Edgar Hoover closed down the bank right before or right after they started World War II, when we got in it. But they were, that bank was handling all of Germany's money in this country. And they were also giving money, loaning money to people that were furnishing firearms and making, necessary things for they to build up the Third Reich. And so anyway, the Dulles brothers worked in a law firm in New York, and they were very close with Prescott Bush and other people that were just right before HW. And anyway, and so it was no surprise to a lot of people that they had a very strong leaning towards Germany. And what happened was, Dulles brothers were the ones who said, going to be a president this time around, that we could start something with him that we might not be able to start with whoever's next. And so they came up with starting the National Security Act, or what's it? That was the name of it, I think. But anyway, so they convinced Truman that the world's a different place now, Mr. Truman, because after the Second World War, even though we won, communism is on the march. And I believe it was his brother, John Foster Dulles, who was the Secretary of State, who coined the phrase domino theory. And they convinced Truman that what would happen is we'd lose Vietnam, for example, then Laos, then Cambodia, and so forth, and then the same thing in Central America. And so he said, there are times when we will actually have to kill people. And that was called executive action. And they convinced him that he had to approve that, and he did. Well, that was the first part of the plan. The second part of the plan was now we have to not be able to tell people that we did it, did it, or what we were going to do it. And that was plausible deniability. So they went back to Truman and they talked to him about it and tried to convince him. And he said, no, absolutely not. And then they left. And sometime very close to that time, Alan Dulles, told the Congress that Truman had approved it. And so they passed that particular article. And Truman was so upset that he wrote a real stinging letter in the Washington Post. But the Washington Post has always been part of the CIA. The Grahams, they owned the Washington Post. And the husband was a big drinker, but Catherine Graham was a real business person, and she was an actual CIA agent. And also, they hired Ben Bradley. And Ben Bradley had been in intelligence before and some journalism. And so they hired him as the editor of the Washington Post. Now, he was such a connection to the CIA that he knew his sister-in-law was going to be murdered. And her name, her Mary Pinchon Myers, whose husband was a one of the top CIA agents, and that had gotten divorced, and Mary was finally became a paramour of John Kennedy. In that month before he died, his wife was on a sojourn of some type, gone for most of the month, and he was visited by Mary Pinchon Myers. I think in 16 days that month. Used to have coffee clashes with people that she had been friends with for years, wives of CIA people. And at those little get-togethers, she talked a lot. And at one of those get-togethers, she said some stuff, and that lady approached or called her now divorced husband and told him, I think you ought to talk to Mary because she's talking a lot about what's going on over at the company, And so he then got involved with James Jesus Angleton and Ben Bradley, and they decided to kill her instead. So she was shot by a CIA agent in Georgetown along the Chesapeake and Ohio Canal, which runs along M Street. And so it's just one more story of many, many stories of people that died because of the assassination.
Wow, that's incredible. So I'm gonna shift back over to you, Jim, and maybe we can go through some of the pictures you shared with me. So again, we're seeing this incredible. Let me speak, and then I'll hand it over to you. But so we're seeing this incredible other government that's running the show, and you've talked about, and we've all talked about how they basically put a death warrant on JFK because he was working with the Russians, and he was working with the Russians to keep America safe and so forth. That's his privilege as the American president. But they didn't like that because they weren't in charge, they weren't in control. So they put out a death sentence on him. Now, I'm going to share a picture with the Scherfs, who is the Bush family. Basically, this is them in Germany. So they're with Otto Skorzeny, who was a very top level special forces guy in Nazi Germany. Reinhard Gehlen, Martin Bormann, Joseph Mengele. We know all about him with the medical stuff. But here's George Scherf Jr., who would be George H.W. Bush, and here's his father, George Scherf, who eventually would be Prescott Bush. So Prescott Bush, as we know him, was born in Germany, served in the German Navy, and his son, George Scherf, was born in Germany as well. So obviously not eligible to be an American president, but he was. Of course, both of them are running the government of this deep state and making decisions and so forth, like we saw. We know that George H.W. Bush was at the scene. He's been. There's pictures of him at the JFK assassination. So, what are your thoughts about that? And Jim, and I'll share some of your pictures here in a second. Go ahead, you can unmute now.
Can you hear me now? You can hear me? Okay. All right, so I haven't seen that picture before. That's an amazing picture. I've heard the story before. I know that the Bushes were involved with several other families that had a lot of money invested in the German stock market. And back, in the time frame between World War I and World War II, going up to World War II, there was a lot of money invested. Now, Jim Manning already alluded to the fact that Alan Dulles, as a CIA officer, was involved. He was a lawyer to start off with, and he was at Sullivan and Cromwell. And Sullivan and Cromwell represented a lot of those international interests and investments in Europe and with the Germans and with other countries, even like Guatemala and the copper company in Chile. And when Allende in Chile said, hey, we're going to nationalize the copper company and take it away from America, you're taking too many of our resources out of our country and we're not getting paid anything for it. That's the kind of stuff that generates, coups to overthrow a country, because you've got all these investors, and when you're in the big dog in the dog lot, and one dog says, "Hey, I'm taking all the copper," the big dog says, "Oh no, you're not," and that's really, in my view, that's really all it is. Those people don't want to lose, and that's why the mafia was so pissed off at Kennedy for the failure of the Bay of Pigs, because they wanted their property back, all those hotels and beachfront property in Havana that they lost when Fidel Castro took the country and then basically announced it was going to be a communist thing and aligned with Russia. So, but the Bushes, he was basically CIA his entire adult career. He was on one of the Jedburgh teams. Late in the war, he parachuted into France. He was with the OSS, and then it became the CIA, and he was with these assassination teams. He used a cover in Texas, and it was called the Zabata. It starts with a Z, oil company, and I think they were taking those the big grants, to have the oil rigs and things like that in the Gulf of Mexico. He had two ships. One was called Barbara, was named after his wife, and the other one might have been called Sabata. I can't remember, but it's something that was significant to him and his family. But we know that from James Files that they were running heroin from Laos into those oil rigs, and then they run them in, because they weren't checked by customs. They went back and forth between like Louisiana and Florida and Mississippi and stuff like that in these surface boats and helicopters. I've got friends that left the Marine Corps when I was a pilot in the Marine Corps and went to work for PHI, Petroleum Helicopters Incorporated. And they flew helicopters back and forth to those rigs several times a day. And there wasn't anybody checking them. So they could have brought a bale of marijuana or, whatever, 50 kilos of cocaine or, whatever. So we know Bush was, the Jeb and George W. were involved in picking up some of those loads. In fact, there's a picture floating around of Jeb Bush at one of the airports picking up, at meeting the airplane that had like Barry Seal's plane full of cocaine. And Hillary picked James more than, picked him up and they went to lunch. Y'all have heard that story. Hillary Clinton, but she was one of the ones, or Jimmy was one of the ones that Hillary tried to clean up at the end, where all the Arkansas state troopers were killed and Jimmy got in the gunfight, which is what sent him to prison for so long. But he hadn't ratted on anybody. He stayed quiet. I mean, he could have, he did come out and the FBI threatened him if you tell this story about you being involved in the Kennedy assassination, we're going to give you, and he's listening right now. I think when he comes on, he'll tell that story. They threatened to give him like another 30 years, and he did the interview anyway. And I think it took a hell of a lot of courage to do that. And then basically they tacked on another 30 years, and then he fought it in court and won the case, and ended up getting out of prison when he was like 74 years old. So, but George H.W. Bush was in Dealey Plaza. I think that's one of the pictures that I gave you, but you don't have to flip to that. Just if you want to flip through the pictures real quick, I can quickly describe what they are. I think a lot of them are evidence of the stuff that we're talking about. So I just hope that, and also to the audience, while you're doing that, there's a book, Primary Target JFK, that Pamela Ray Files wrote. You can get it several places, Author House, or you can get it on eBay, and you can buy it directly from them if you want a copy that's got Jim's thumbprint in it and his autograph. But all right, so that picture is actually, that's a very special picture. That is one frame out of a video. I had to isolate the frame, but that looks like a Remington XP100, but it is and it's not. That is the first prototype of the Remington XP100. I got it after Remington went bankrupt. They sold a bunch of their guns to a dealer, a friend of mine, and that is the first prototype of the Remington XP100. It's got actually a Remington 722 action that's stamped XP. It's over here on my counter. I can show it to you if you wanted a close look at it. But it's actually chambered in 222. and it has a wooden stock with finger grips. And Jim Files, way back when he did that first confession, he said that Remington had tested these guns with a .222 barrel, and that they found issues with the barrel. And if you look at the barrel, the contour of the barrel near the chamber is very thin. And the .221 Fireball that actually came out, that's a shortened case, a little shorter than the .222 Remington. That's the ad. That's the original 1963 ad, and for the Remington XP100, they sold for $99, and that's James Files' thumbprint and his autograph on there. You can keep flipping as you flip. I think some of these, a lot of people don't know what a Remington XP100 is. Several thousand of them have been made, but and they've been made in a lot of calibers too. 22 250, 7BR. That's Gary Marlowe. He was called the Raven. He's the guy that shot Officer J.D. Tibbet. Gary was working with the Mafia, and Sam Giancana had told him not to let anybody know he was in Dallas that knew him. And he was tasked with killing Lee Harvey Oswald. And he was over there looking for Lee. Lee was supposed to be walking with his pistol from his boarding house to the movie theater. And he bumped into J.D. Tibbet. J.D. was a friend of his from the Bay of Pigs operation. And because he was told that nobody could know he was in Dallas, he killed J.D., which I find bizarre. I mean, since they'd worked on a black op together, it seemed like he could just say, hey, dude, don't tell anybody I was here. You know what I mean? I'm not sure I could kill one of my close friends just to, but he did it. Shot him with a .38 Special Colt. So that's the guy that really killed J.D. Tibbet. This is kind of a famous picture, and there were these 5 guys who were arrested. Turns out they were Mossad agents, and they're dancing in a parking lot behind a van, and that's the World Trade Center on fire behind them. So it's they were questioned. They were held for several days, and the Mossad worked out a deal to get them released. But they were questioned, and they were actually interviewed back in Israel, and they were asked what were they doing there, and they said under testimony. There's a video online you can look, and says we were there to record the event. Well, if they were Israeli Mossad and they were there to record the event, how did they know it was going to happen? You know what I mean? I mean, it's a pretty simple question, right? So when you're talking about the deep state and all this kind of stuff, now this is Pam's book, Primary Target JFK, How the CIA Used the Chicago Mob to Kill the President. You can get these first edition hardcover with Jim's thumbprint. Some of them he's put his trigger finger print in also. Well, recently I suggested that, and he thought it was a good idea, and I've got a couple books that have both his thumbprint and his trigger finger, but it has his autograph in it. But you can get that at their website, which I've sent you, but the link, and I think you're going to put the link below the thing, but it's JFK Murder jamesfiles.weebly.com, and Weebly is spelled W-E-E-B-L-Y. JFK Murder jamesfiles.weebly.com. And I think those books, along with Jim Manning's book that releases the information about the zipper document, which you can't hardly find a copy of the Regicide book. There you go. You can get a first edition book with Pam's autograph, Jim's autograph, and his thumbprint. And it could be, personalized to you if you want that too. You could ask them, but you can do it on that website. What else? Do you have any other pictures? I can't hear you.
Let's bring in Pamela and Jimmy. Here's James here, guys, and we're gonna be James. Can you tell us a little bit about your background in the CIA and how that happened?
Well, my mother left home in 1941 from a little town in Alabama called Oakman, and she went down to Mobile, Alabama. She met this guy by the name of Les Sutton, and that's where I acquired the name Sutton, never legally, just started using it because I was born with an X number. And from the X number, I went to James Sutton, and from James Sutton, I went to James Files. And jobs were hard to find at that time. There was no jobs available. And so Les Sutton got her involved in this program, birthing program, and that's how I came about. And I don't know who my real father is. You know, there's several different DNAs in the jar, I guess, in the tube, and they mixed it up. And I always joked and said, yeah, I'm a milkshake. But they put it there, and I was the results of it. And I think 123, 124 of us was born at that time. In 1941, actually, it was assimilated in 41. And we started, and I was born in January 24th of 42. I was one of the early ones born. And out of a class of Camp Hero, only 14 of us graduated, survived it. And from there on, I trained heavily and steadily, and jumping out of airplanes to doing all kind of MAs, mechanical ambushes, one thing after another. And as a kid, 10 years of age, I was able to throw a knife 35, 40 feet and hit the target every time of a human being they had pinned up, what we'd call the kill zone. Mm-hmm. And later on, after I joined the service when I turned 17, I would think I was in my early 20s. We attended different schools of called School of Americas, which a lot of people have never heard of. We had one in South America, one in Central America, and one here in North America at Fort Benning, Georgia. I did all my training and jumping from Fort Bragg, North Carolina, Mackerel Reservation. And I went to Laos, and I shipped out from there July the 10th of 1959. And from there, I wound up with the Bay of Pigs. From the Bay of Pigs, the Kennedy assassination is known through in the rest of my life. Most of it is in the book Primary Target. And not all of my life, but some of my life. I made some of the points there. My wife does not know everything that I did. And a lot of people said, oh, why didn't you take your wife's name if you wanted to get away from the name of Files or Sutton? And I said, why? My wife's first name is Pamela Ray. Then I'd be known as James Earl Ray. Would that be any better than James Earl Files or James Earl Sutton? And people used to laugh about it, you know. And so I just kept the name Files, and I did federal time under the name Files in the short stretch, which was in Oxford, Wisconsin at the FCI. And then this last case I had was the one where I went to Stateville for the shootout with the cops. And anyway, while I was there, Pamela contacted the officer that got shot, and he told her he was very upset with the government because he felt to say who he was up against because they didn't give him the details of me or my career. And Pamela's got that on tape also. So she called him. She told him that we was doing a book, and she had my story. And she wanted to know if he wanted his side of the story told, and he said yes, definitely. And he claimed over 50 rounds was fired. The government never told him who he was up against, and he said he was upset over that. And a couple of sentences later, Pamela said, well, Jimmy said you had a $50,000 contract on him. And he didn't say yes or no. He just laughed a little bit. And then he said, this is when he started in about the government. And
were you still working for the CIA at that point?
Yeah.
When that happened?
I was still employed by the agency at that time, yes. And Eugene Habenfuss had been shot down while I was doing federal time. They had a couple of agents come visit me at the Oxford FCI, and they asked me my own opinion where Oswald was shot down at. The plane with Pet Lady was shot down at in Central America because it was one of my old theater of operations. So I told them what they should do and how to get him to take him out, because I told them that Eugene would talk. And they didn't do it, and he wanted to spill the beans on everybody. And he was from Marriott, Wisconsin.
What scandal was that all about?
That was about the fellow. That's when we were supplying the Contras and fighting with them and all of that.
Iran-Contra.
So anyway, from that, and then the operations in Vietnam and operations are basically around the world and in Eastern Europe, where I got blown off the cliff by a Hi-24 helicopter, which is Russian. It was firing rockets at me, and I was dealing with it with a carbine rifle and a 9mm, and helicopter won. I got blown off the cliff, and I got severely wounded and hurt, and I spent a lot of time, and they sent Bruce Bradchick halfway around the world after I got out of the hospital in Germany. I went, they sent me to Sweden, or Switzerland it was. And Bradchick flew him over there because he worked on the computers, and he had located me a lot of times when I would be lost, and they had lost track of me. And he helped me get back on my feet, and it took me about 6 months where I could walk again. And like this time, I've been laid up for the last year and a half, going on 2 years now, where I'm bedridden and I'm restricted to a wheelchair. And I have to have help getting from the bed to the wheelchair and from the wheelchair back into bed. And so I'm 83 now. I'm going to be 84 in January if I make it to January. And all I can say is after I had the stroke, a lot of the things in my mind, a lot of the names and answers, I can't think of them right away, but most of it is in the book Primary Target. And my wife wrote the book, and if it hadn't been for her, that book would have never been published, because she wanted it out there. She felt the people should know certain aspects of the truth, and she kept after me, and finally we did that one. And that was the only book we did together that while I was out of prison. Excuse me. The other two books that she did, I was in prison. And she wrote 3 books altogether: To Kill a Country, Interview with History, and the third one was Primary Target. So all 3 books are, well, I guess each one is 500 pages or better. And they carry a lot of the stories in there and a lot of the things there. And I put a lot of pictures of my artwork in a couple of the books. And she's got them, made them now. She made pictures of the artwork, and she's got that on display or whatever. And she put some on the website because we're selling some of the artwork that I did. And at Stateville, when we go in lockdown, was when I did most of my oil paintings. And she has the original of the one I did of JFK and Marilyn and Monroe and Death. I sent that one to Bruce Bradchick, which you've probably seen him in some of the interviews with me. And him and I have been friends since 1969. I'm 9 years older than Bruce. And I was come back from the Central Hemisphere, and I was looking for a place to work out. And so David Phillips recommended a place up on the north side of Chicago. And I went there and I found this young kid working there. And I didn't know he worked there. I thought he was just training. I asked him when he got through training, I said, "How often do you train here? But I'd like to train with you." And he said, "I work here part-time." And I said, "That's better yet." And so we started training together. And he still laughs about, talks about it. My kicks were pretty hard. And he took it, and like he said, I used to kick the devil out of him, 2-3 times a week when I was home. I'd train there. And he wound up owning, I think it was nine martial arts studios altogether on the south side and north side. And we've been friends since 1969. And he's got over 900 visits to Stateville to see me. And it's all booked and logged and registered with the Stateville. Because he has to sign up every time you come in, so they've got all that on record.
Very good. So, thanks for sharing all that. So,
Yeah.
Jim Manning, you've done a lot of time with James and Pamela. What stands out in your mind, and what can you ask James?
Hi, Jimmy. How are
My
you?
wife, Pamela.
Huh?
Oh,
Jim
Jim
Manning.
Okay, yeah, I'm pretty good. How are
Yeah.
you today?
Yeah, fine, Jim.
I said, how are you today? Are you okay?
I'm
Good.
doing good. Yeah, doing good. Um, the thing that stands out most about Jim to me is that the thing that people don't really understand that much is the way he was born and the way that he had to go
I'm
through
not
his
hearing you.
youth.
The voice is cutting out.
Voice cutting out. Anyway, what?
It's spinning, but
Anyway, I think that possibly from the response that I've gotten from the YouTubes that we've done together, they're overwhelmingly in favor of not only that he was the shooter, but that he was led, his life led him that way from birth with that naval birthing program, Camp Hero. There's a lot of stuff there that people ask me about. Of course, I don't know much about it, but it got to the point where Jim did what he was told. He did what he was told in the Army. He did what he was told when he worked for the CIA, and that's the kind of guy he is. He's a plain guy, very bright, extremely bright, but he didn't make a connection that a lot of people would make in killing, and so that really stands out to me. That his birth and growth had a lot to do with who he is, and the CIA has to kill people. There are people that they have to kill, and that was made clear to President Truman in 1947, and so Jim's not the only one, but he may be the only one that went through the naval birthing program, and I was going to ask Jim if he knew if anybody else in the birthing program was in the CIA today.
Every now and then.
Go ahead.
Did he hear me?
And so we lost you before, and I only heard a few words that you said. Every so often, I heard a couple words.
Yeah, well, I was going to ask about if
Sam,
any
I
other
can see
people.
you now, but I still hear you.
I don't know. I'm not real good at this TV stuff.
Let me try it.
But
Now, can you hear me?
Yeah, go
I
ahead.
hear you.
Yeah, I hear you, but I don't hear Jim.
Jim Manning. There's two Jims.
Okay.
Ask you if you knew anybody in the birthing program that left Camp Hero with you and then was with the CIA.
I don't know anybody. 34, because the operations that we went on and that we did was dangerous. Most of them were still off by the time they were 34 years of age. If you lived to 34, you was considered an old man. And with the Chicago outfit, see, Chicago was never a family. Chicago is known as the outfit. And the ledger that I burned that belonged to Nicoletti and me, Nicoletti gave me before they killed him, showed us where we were tied up with over 60 mob hits. And that's why the FBI wanted it so bad. And basically, the one book, babe, could you hand me that book back there?
Our book?
Yeah,
Oh,
not the spiral notebook. This book here, I don't know if you can see it, but on the bottom, on page 50, It talks about when the FBI kidnapped me and tortured me, and they admitted they failed to bring me to speak of any crime that I'd been involved in. And so basically the FBI, they've known about me forever. They chased me for many years. And Zach Shellen is the one that finally arrested me on the hijacking ring. And there's a episode, it's a 2-hour episode on the Daniel Seifert killing, which I did not participate in, but it tells about the Chicago mob and how we handled things and did things. And like I told Pamela, we ruled from the west coast of from the west border of Pennsylvania all the way to the Pacific Ocean and from Canada to the Gulf. Everything they ruled. We took no orders from New York. New York absolutely had no power over the outfit in Chicago. There was 5 families in New York, but they was always squabbling with each other. And I think, and it's not just me saying it, it's other people saying it, Chicago was probably more bloody than all 5 families in New York. And 69 and 70, Chicago, I mean, we went off the marks with the executions and everything else. And Daniel Seifert had turned informant, and he was going to testify against the mob on the International Plastics Fiberglass Company in Bensenville, Illinois. And they killed him with his wife and son there. And it was a botched hit. And they sent 2 young wannabes. And on YouTube, on Deadly Secrets about the Chicago mob, they claimed that Joey Lombardo and Tony Spilaccio did the hit, which was incorrect, because somebody with an indictment on them, a federal indictment, would never go on a hit like that, would be tied right to the outfit itself. The outfit used a couple of no-name youngsters that if they got caught, they could deny any connection to them with the outfit. They would never send unknown hitman to them. And that's why they failed to send Chuck and me. And I was upset because they didn't send Chuck and me. And I wound up, it was a debauched hit, but they killed him. They did what they're supposed to, but it was a very sloppy job. And if you ever get a chance, watch Chicago's Deadly Associates on YouTube. It's a 2-hour feature, and it's well worth watching. And it's very interesting. But they've got a lot of the facts wrong in there.
Jim, if you can hear me, tell the story about Jimmy Hoffa.
Jimmy Hoffa? He was at the restaurant. Yeah. This driver went in to get coffee for him, and somebody walked up alongside the car. Jimmy rolled the back window down because he was sitting in the back seat, and he was shot and executed. And a blanket was thrown over him in the back seat, and he was drove out of there in that car. Went to a sanitation plant, and I believe it was in Broadview, Michigan. And they took his watch off, and they took his wallet out, and they returned it to his stepson. And Jimmy Hoffa's body went into the furnace. The ashes went all over Detroit. That's why when I was at Stateville, I used to bet the people there, I'd give them 100-to-1 odds they wouldn't find nobody. They dug up horse sperms, and they dug up everything else, and they never found nobody of Jimmy Hoffa. Because Jimmy Hoffa wasn't buried. Jimmy Hoffa was incinerated. And it was just like Antonio Cardo's home. When they pulled the jewel heist over on Michigan Avenue, the guy they robbed was a friend of Tony Accardo's. Tony Accardo grew up in the 42 gang. He was also a gunman for Al Capone. So Tony Accardo in his own right was a stone cold killer, assassination or whatever, hitman, what you want to call him. And me and Tony Accardo got along real well with Sam Giancana. And they talk about Sam DeStefano, the torture chamber where they put the guy's head in a vice in the movie Casino and squeeze the eyeballs out. Sam DeStefano, he had this house there in Broadview, and he had the torture chamber in his basement. The basement was soundproof, and I wouldn't go to Sam's house there, just Sam DeStefano, and don't mix him up with Sam Giancana. Sam Giancana was a nice guy compared to Sam DeStefano. And Sam Despano, he was actually a little bit crazy, just a whole lot. And he had that reputation of going to court in his pajamas and shopping in his pajamas and everything else. And I had actually seen.
If you can
Looks
hear
like
me,
we
Jim,
lost
you
him.
cut out. I guess the CIA was tired of hearing his story. The NSA or somebody cut him off. Maybe the FBI.
So while we're there, there's this one picture that you shared with me, Jim. Let me share that real quick. Looks like they're trying to come back in. So I'm gonna share this one picture and just give us because there's a lot of conspiracy theories out there. So this is Maryland at Area 51, Site 4. What is this?
That supposedly is a depiction. You know, Marilyn was having a sexual relationship with Robert N. John, and there was a rumor that she was pregnant by John. And you know, Jimmy drove the 4 guys that killed Marilyn to the airport, and they gave her a barbiturate enema and killed her. We can see you now, Jim. Again, we had to go off and
Actually, it was only three guys that drove to the airport.
Oh, 3. Okay. Who were they? It was Chuck and Louis the Lips, and was it Butch Brassey? Who were the 3? Oh, we can't hear him. If you can hear me, Jim, we can't hear you for some reason.
It muted on your end.
Oh, he's dropping off again. So there's 3 guys he drove to the airport. Anyway, they went out there. How about now? Can you hear us now, Jim? You pop back in.
Yeah, you're coming in loud and clear now.
Okay. Who are the 3 guys? Chuck and who else?
One of the parties is still alive, and he lives in Western here in one of the western states, and he's in good health and everything. And I wouldn't want to put him in prison by naming him for being involved in the murder of Marilyn Monroe.
And what about the guy that flew?
The pilot is still alive. The pilot is. I did not drive the pilot there. The pilot was there in the plane. The pilot is still alive too. At least he was a few weeks ago.
That's one of the things for everybody's knowledge. That's one of the things Jimmy didn't want to implicate people that are still alive. So a lot of people are deceased now, so we can talk a lot more about this stuff. So he's not gonna talk about people still alive.
We didn't publish the book Murdering Marilyn because I used the man's real name in the book, the one I thought was deceased already, and then I come to find out he was still alive, and I talked to him on the phone. And so I'm changing his name and giving him an alias. And like on the front cover of the book, it says some names have been changed to protect the guilty, not the innocent, but to protect the guilty. Because I thought everybody by now was dead, but evidently they're not.
But to answer your question real quick, Michael, this picture is an artist rendition. Can you hear me?
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah.
Okay. So basically, this is an artist rendition of the sport model that Bob Lazar outed. It's a craft that about 52 feet, in diameter, and it's got a cyclotron in it. It's radioactive. If any of your audience ever come upon one of these UFOs, don't get near it because the radioactivity can kill you. But anyway, the rumor was
it'll burn your skin red.
John F. Kennedy and Robert were read into the Majestic 12 program, and they talked to Marilyn about it in bed, I guess trying to impress her. And she started talking about it to an art dealer in New York on the phone, James Jesus Angleton, and via the agency, the counterintelligence, they had Marilyn's phone bugged. And they had bugs in the apartment. So they had dirt on John and Robert, right? Supposedly that team was let in, and you can correct me if I'm wrong there, Jimmy, but when the team got there, I'm not sure one way or the other whether she was already unconscious from being drugged or something, but supposedly Robert Kennedy Sr. is the one that let him in Marilyn's house there in Brentwood. And they gave her some kind of a
That is correct.
barbiturate enema, and it killed her. But the bottom line was Marilyn was talking about this information, and there was a letter. It's called the Byrne Memo, and I think Jim Manning probably knows about it. But it's a document that was found, and it basically says, you know, if JFK persisted because he was going to, and if you've seen the real trademark speech that he was going to give in Dallas, he was going to explain that the Roswell incident was true, and that we had not only the craft but the deceased beings, and one of them he wasn't going to say to the speech, but one of them had lived. They called him J-Rod, and they had to build a bubble for him to live in because of the atmosphere from his planet was different or something. But anyway, bottom line is, well, was talking about stuff in there. It's considered to be the greatest secret of our government, supposedly. That and the location of the gold. I understand it's not in Fort Knox anymore. But anyway, that's why they killed him, supposedly. And Jim probably's got some comments about that.
Oh, please.
Well,
If anybody has any questions.
Yeah,
for a long time. Oh, okay, Jim. Okay, go ahead. Street Jims. Street Jims.
Yeah, I meant both of you. Yeah.
Say,
Go ahead.
say Manning, Files, or Scott. Don't use the name Jim.
There we go. There. Thank you,
Okay.
Pamela.
When it's my turn, just say Manning.
Trying to help everybody.
Go ahead, Manning.
Manning.
Oh,
Scott,
okay.
Files.
Most people know very little about extraterrestrials and things like that in this country. You know, I had dinner a couple of months ago. I happened to mention, looked at me, she said, were you dreaming? And just occurred that, people don't know anything now. Whenever Roswell happened, it was cut up. The next day they lied about it being a balloon and whatever. But there were so many things that happened there that even before that, Truman had set up the Majestic 12, which were 12 men who knew about it. They were scientists, some military types, and one of them, one of the 12, thought that they needed to start disclosing things about extraterrestrials to the American people. And he was really, really pushing for that. And we have a carrier named after him, Forrestal. I think he might have been the first Secretary of Defense. And Mr. Forrestal went to Bethesda Hospital, and he jumped out of a 14-story window. I think it was 14-story. However, it was proven later that he wouldn't have been strong enough to even run into it or hit a piece of furniture. So anyway, there's books on it, and most historians now believe he was killed because he wanted to bring that out. And so I got into that whenever I was studying about Kennedy, because Kennedy wanted to bring it out too. And if when I was young, I thought maybe the reason that they killed Kennedy was because of him trying to bring it out, But after I found out more about it, I realized that. I think that the Kennedys knew a good bit about it, and they
Jim Manning have James Files talk about Gordon Gray.
Gordon
Gray.
Gray.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm not familiar
Gordon
with
Gray was the MJ-12 member, and James Files has personal recollections of meeting him and talking to him.
Oh,
Go ahead,
yeah.
Jim.
MJ-12.
Files.
Gordon
Tell
Gray.
us, Jim.
Well, Gordon Gray, him and I,
Yeah.
we used to sit down and share a 6-pack or a couple of 6-packs, and it all depended on how much time we had. And he used to tell me a lot of stories about Area 51 and different stories, aliens, spaceships. And I thought the guy was really nuts, and I didn't believe him at the time. I used to laugh and agree with him, and we'd drink a beer, and we pretty good friends, at least as far as I was concerned, we was. And all I know is the stories that he told me about aliens and spaceships and that. And there was two crashes that night at Roswell. One was 35 miles northwest of Roswell. And two of the spaceships collided together, and the one blew up and the other one landed. It didn't land. It went into a ravine, into a muddy ditch, and half of it was buried in that ditch. And they dug it out and they exhumed it and they took it back. And they carried it to some place in Texas. And from there, I went to Dayton, Ohio, and Patterson Air Force Base. And as far as I know, it's still there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, well, the CIA, of course.
Gordon Gray was one of the members of MJ-12.
Yeah, the CIA made people disappear. Bob Lazar came out. He was working at S4, which is about 12 miles away from Main side at Area 51. And that's where they had most of the stuff going on with the aliens and their flight equipment. And Bob Lazar came out and said that he had figured out how they were engineering the saucers, how to make them fly.
Reverse engineering.
Yeah, and he came out with another element. I think it was maybe 119, and they said there is no such. What is it? 116. 115. Okay, yeah, I was close.
115.
Anyway, yeah, he came out with that, and at the time he came out with it, they washed his whole life away. I mean, they went and there's no. I don't know if he ever had they took a birth certificate away. They took his colleges that he went to away. They erased him from the world, and then.
Right.
Unfortunately, they missed one thing. He had been in another government facility in New Mexico, and he had his phone directory from that, and his name was listed in there and what his telephone number was. So they missed that. But most people that are looking at that, they know that Bob Lazar is on the level.
Well, Bob Lazar is on the level, and just like me, they erased most of my life. It's very hard to find part of it. But Joe West found part of my history at the archives in St. Louis, and he went back there.
You mean John C. Grady?
John C. Grady, I mean.
82nd Airborne.
He was the historian for the 82nd Airborne. He went back there, I don't know, 6-7 weeks later, and the folder was empty. He said, no further evidence available, the label on the ticket. They had a fire in the archives. Another thing that burned up was 1959, Operation Mobile White Star.
Yeah.
And some of my friends, finally, they dug deep enough into it, and they found out that Mobile White Star did exist in Laos. And they interviewed Fletcher Prouty, and he said, yes, that was one of his men.
That's right. That's right. So they tried real hard, but sometimes there's always a couple of things they don't do.
It's like me. A couple of things that I had, like cards who I was or where I traveled at. And I also had the nickel with the double 5 on it, which is the airborne, is known as the double nickel. That was in 82nd Airborne. I was with think it's 122nd, was double nickel. When you walked in, you laid it on the bar, and your first drink was like on the house. And that went missing also while I was doing time.
It's amazing with all the information that you
344.
have, files that they haven't taken you out, because I have mentioned some of this stuff, and MJ12 does not mess around. They will come after you and eliminate you. So I'm happy that you're still here with all the information. You're saying stuff on a level I haven't heard before, so it's very impressive. Jim, you have something else you want to, or Scott, you have something else you want to say?
Have y'all heard of this? It's called the Psalm 1 Special Operations Manual 1. Have you ever heard of that? It's a top secret document involving extraterrestrials. It was mailed in a film canister to a researcher years ago, and some people somehow get copies of these documents, and it was published in 1954. I don't know, is that reversed, or can you see it okay?
Not great, but
I
if you
think
take the
gave
plastic
us
off the front.
Are the letters
yeah,
reversed?
Yeah.
it's hard to see.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Well,
Jim Scott gave us this.
Yeah, that was eyes only.
yeah. I don't know if you couldn't read
Jim
that
Scott
on
gave
my
us
copy,
this.
I guess.
Scott gave us this.
Yeah. It's called Majestic 12 Group Special Operations Manual. And it's many, many pages long, and it's got all kinds of references and explanations and stuff like that. It was leaked. Chapter 6 is
One guy that just died recently,
So,
years ago,
it's
interviewed me at State Level with this.
pretty deep.
Joe West?
No,
Anyway, that's
not
just,
Joe West.
just one of the pieces of evidence.
No, the
The
author.
story
He
is
wrote a
true.
bunch of books.
Y'all go ahead. You're not muted.
Oh, is the JFK author?
Yeah,
Huh. He just died?
a few years ago. The hell was his name? He interviewed me. He interviewed me with one bank bar.
That was me.
Yes, but there was another man there. Who was the guy that was the book author? He wrote Double Cross or something.
Oh, Jim Mars.
Jim Mars, yeah, Jim Mars.
Yeah.
I forgot what I was going to say about Jim Mars.
Oh, Jim Mars and this UFO and Gordon Gray. He asked you about Gordon
Yeah.
Gray when you did your 2003 interview.
Yeah. You all know who Jim Mars was, so. But he was
Yeah,
the one
sure.
that handled the interview. I was still locked up in prison. That was his state bill. And he come there to interview me when he first mentioned UFOs. I told him, I said, I refuse to put in the book. People think I'm crazy as it is. I said, I don't want to talk about UFOs, but I do want to talk about Gordon Gray. Was Gordon Gray really with Majestic 12? And he said, yes, he was.
Yeah.
And there was a picture of you and him in Florida somewhere,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah, I had a house there in Florida with plastic pink flamingos that everybody was buying back then. You stick them down in the soil in the yard.
Uh-huh.
So
I had a hard
let's,
time coming up with Jim Mars' name because this is a stroke. I forgot a lot of the names of the people that I knew and people that I talked to, and I learned and different things because my memory's not as sharp as it used to be. And thank God Pamela had me get together with her, and we put the book Primary Target out before I had the stroke.
Yeah.
So let's talk about your book, Files, the Primary Target, and so people can.
There's a lot of details in it.
Yeah, it's a great book, and so we've talked about it before on the show, but and
Yeah,
we've talked about
I
how people
think
can
so.
get it.
Yeah,
Yeah,
right.
so they can get it up.
And I put my thumb for one reason. I could see that it was mine. And
This
on the
one
back
is
cover,
upside down,
yeah,
but
okay.
they're normally on this first
Yeah.
page. But he
Yeah.
accidentally did that one. But we'll fix it.
But on the back page, the back cover, it's me standing behind the tombstone of Nicoletti's grave. And Nicoletti and me worked together. Him and Milwaukee Phil was partners for a long time. But when Milwaukee Phil stepped down from it and decided to remain in the shadows for a while, I became Chuck's partner in a lot of the hits. And the ledger that I had burned had over 60 hits in it with Charles Nicoletti and me in it.
Wait, because it's spinning and it might not be hearing you.
No, we got it. You're good.
Yeah.
Did you hear all that about me standing back of Nicoletti's grave tombstone?
Yeah, that's good insight. I didn't realize that.
Phil, yeah, okay.
Ask if there's any questions, because
Yeah, is there any questions
from
that you want to
people that
and the people that's watching the show?
this might be one of the last chances to
Yeah.
get it.
As far as I'm concerned, this will possibly and probably be one of my last interviews. Now, Dory is going to come out with a feature on the documentary. But when it will be released, I don't know. But Dory came here and
no, Matt, the guys that filmed you in 2023 are coming out with the documentary.
yeah, okay, Matt
Dory's not
Guthrie,
going to
yeah,
have a
okay.
documentary.
Matt Guthrie. I get people mixed up. Like I said, since the stroke, my mind is not as sharp as it used to be. They're going to do a feature thing. It's supposed to be on the History Channel or something, and it'll be about me and the JFK assassination and my part of my life in that.
We'll see.
Very nice.
And so far, Matt told me they had $50 million for the full-length feature cinema movie they want to do. They said the movie's going to cost like $100 million, and they got $50 million already towards the cinema. Who will play my part? I don't know, but I'll be dead before. Excuse me. I'll probably be dead before they ever get the movie out.
Tell them what type of person I told them to look for
I
to
forget.
play your part.
Oh, the NASCAR driver. She's
A young NASCAR driver.
young NASCAR driver to play my part.
They want to look for that
Yeah.
type of physique. The young NASCAR driver.
So anyway, I'm getting a little bit confused. It's about time for me to go lay down. I'll try and hang on for a few more minutes.
All right. Well, we thank you. So a lot of questions are about, why you went to prison, but we've discussed that. Now, Hillary Clinton, tell us how she was involved in you being targeted like that. That would be phenomenal.
I was targeted because I was one of the last people to survive that could put her bill with a load of drugs in Arkansas, in Mena, Arkansas.
Cocaine.
Load of cocaine, marijuana, whatever was flying in. And I used to fly with Barry Seal. Sometimes we'd fly in the same plane. Other times he used his plane, and I flew a DC-3, which is a military transport name, and be a C-47, depending on how it was fixed out. And Hillary, anyway, she's cleaning up all the loose ends. And Bill was running for president. And the two amateur cops, they'd been on the force 10 years and 12 years. And I hate to call them amateur cops, but they were amateur assassins. They come after me and my partner, David Morley. And we won the shootout, but I lost the battle in court. And I wound up with a 50-year sentence. But I was sentenced under the old law, which meant I had to do day for day, which meant I had to serve 25 years. And when I first started out there doing the time, people found out who I was. And they come there, they wanted to do an interview with me on the Kennedy assassination. It was on a Sunday morning. I had the warden, Salvatore Godinez. I had him call up Ann Richards, which was the governor of Texas at that time in the early 90s. And I talked to her, and she said, first of all, Godinez told her, said, I have a prisoner here in Illinois. He said, the Governor Richards, he says, that claims he knows you, and he said he wanted to talk to you. And he said he's doing time by the name of James Files, but he said you'd only know him as Jimmy Sutton. And she said, I put Jimmy on the phone. He said, well, I got him on a speakerphone. Now, and I said, I've got shot. And she said, you always was a bad boy. She says, but she says, you've been in Illinois, I cannot help you. And I said, well, I ain't worried about getting help or assistance there. I said, what I wanted to find out is if Texas would indict me for the assassination of John F. Kennedy, because I'm going to do the interview. She says, Jimmy, go ahead and do the interview, because Texas will never indict you for the assassination of JFK. And she said, we'd build you a Lincoln monument instead. And so I laughed and she laughed, and that was it. But she swore like a sailor. And I went ahead and I gave the interview, and I was threatened by the FBI. If I gave the interview, my appeal would be denied. They would get the charges that were dismissed against me reinstated, and they would take me back to court and get me more time. And in very unpleasant words, I told the FBI to go do it. And I gave the interview, and a couple of weeks after I gave the interview, my appeal was denied. I was resentenced. I got those counts reinstated. I went before the judge. The judge gave me another 30 years and ran it consecutive to the 50, which meant I had a total of 80 years to do, which had to do 40. I spent the next 2.5 years, and the entire court cases in the book, Primary Target, and how I got the time.
In the papers.
And
yeah.
So the judge gave me 30 years on it. I told the judge to go blank himself, and believe it or not, it was all over with and I got out. The judge wanted to take me and my wife out for dinner, and he told a couple of people, he said, I admire the guy. And he said, why? He said, he's the only guy that stood in the courtroom and looked me in the face and told me to go blank myself. Because I told him I didn't remember having a trial on the reinstated. And he said, it's okay. And I asked him what he didn't understand about it and why didn't he go blank himself, et cetera, et cetera. So anyway, me and the judge, we never had no problems. And I didn't threaten anybody, except I sent a message to Ostertag. He was the cop that got shot. And the message I sent him was that he was a very bad shot. And he claimed over 50 rounds was fired. And he was the only one that got hit out of the 50 rounds.
And the message sent back to you is that he said he agrees he was a lousy shot.
The guy that delivered the message came and saw me and met me and my wife and Nick Keller and a couple of other people at Granny's Restaurant in Antioch, Illinois. And the girl come over that morning there, and she said, so-and-so told me that he would like to come and have a talk with you and give you the answer that the message you sent to Ostertag. I said, you got time, come on over. So I had another cup of coffee after having breakfast and sit there, and I talked to the guy when he come over. He only lived about 10 minutes from Granny's, so he's come over there right away, and we talked and we laughed, and he said, Ostertag said you was right. He was a lousy shot. Because they shot the windshield out, the rearview mirror out, the side windows out, and everything else, all kind of holes in the car. And I had rounds of ammunition flying through my hair, and I had long hair at that time. And
wow.
How they missed me at 10 feet, I'll never understand. It's only I say is the good Lord's will.
I believe so. I think that God kept you here so you can talk about all this.
Yeah. And his Ostertag's partner was Gary Bittner.
Scott, go ahead.
Hey, James Files. Oh gosh, he cut out. When he comes back, can y'all hear me? Okay.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah.
Okay, so when he comes, all right, can you hear me, Jimmy?
Yeah. Oh, the other Jimmy.
Yeah, I can hear you now.
Okay, do me a favor, Pam, put your mute button on for a second, because it's bleeding over. And Maybe that'll help.
With
Okay, so
the mute button.
mute. Do you know how to do that? Okay, she got it. All right. So this might help. So just for a second, and you just listen to me. I'm not going to be specific. I'm not going to let anything out. For posterity's sake, I've got a text message here from one of your friends that said to please ask Jimmy to tell the story of when he was sent to Antarctica, to the South Pole. And I'm not going to read the rest of it, but it's involving a hit that you did for the agency. And just for history's sake, could you tell the story but not give any details about what the number of the targets, but what they were? And then we could, after you're dead and gone, we can tell the rest of the story. Can you tell it in just general terms? You'll have to unmute your phone too. Pam, if you can hear me. Go ahead and unmute.
I'm unmuting the microphone, and I couldn't really hear what you were asking because it was
Okay.
cutting out.
Can you hear me now? Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay. Jim, in general
Yes.
terms, in general terms, but don't say what the target was. Explain. You've got somebody that's texted in a question that wants to know about the mission to the South Pole, to the Antarctica, but don't say what the targets were, but just the number of the targets and kind of what happened, and then we could fill the details in after you're gone. Can you do that?
We're only getting a couple words every other time. Every little bit.
Okay. How about now?
Say it again. We didn't hear it.
We're getting messed with here.
Say
Can you
quick
hear
and
me
to the
loud
point,
and clear,
Doc.
Michael and Jim Manning? Can you hear me?
I can hear you.
Jimmy, what Files, what he's asking, you did an operation down to Antarctica, and without saying who the target was and anything other than that, how many people did you take out, and any other details that you can give us, and we'll fill in the blanks after you've passed.
You in my lifetime of been 28 years.
No, the mission you did to Antarctica, the South Pole.
Oh, the Antarctica mission.
Oh, in Antarctica. It wasn't people. It was hybrids where they'd mix DNAs, and I don't know what you would want to call them, but it was hybrids, and they couldn't even speak English. I mean, they just squealed and moaned and yelled a lot, and we probably killed over 40 of them. It was loose. They got loose at Antarctica.
How tall were they?
Yeah, they were approximately 4.5 to 5 foot. What they were, I don't know. They were aliens or something from outer space, or if it's something that they mixed their DNA crossbreeding. I have no idea, and I wasn't filling in on it. I was just told it was a mop up deal that we went there for, and we did that. We got rid of them because the people that would create them, I guess, were scared of them or whatever. So we shot and killed them, and they died easily.
Oh my God, that's an incredible share. Wow. Good ones, Jim Scott. That was over the top. Wow.
You've got to understand all the different countries like Russia and I guess Germany and United States. We all had a piece of Antarctica down there, and we had these camps down there, and there's large caves that you could go in, and they worked in, and they had nuclear facilities down there. And one of the cover stories was we had to clean up, mop up down there because they had a nuclear problem, and there was gray pellets or light green pellets of iridescent all over the ground.
He cut out again for me. Can y'all hear me?
Yeah, we got you.
When he pops back in, I'll tell you. But I never dreamed in my wildest dreams that he would
They
say.
sent me and my team there. They needed somebody close by, and we was in Chile. And I grabbed some of my members there, and they flew us down there. And we landed there. They kept the plane running, and they couldn't shut it off because it's so cold that the fuel would freeze up in the lines. So they had heaters out there, big heaters that were blowing hot air on the airplane. So we went in there, and about 3.5 hours later, we come out, got on the plane, and flew back to Chile.
Wow.
Wait till they can hear you and you can hear them.
We can hear you right at the end. If you can hear,
All right,
you hear me
he's
now?
cutting in and out. Let's promote his book real good.
Go ahead.
You can do it, Jim. Go ahead.
Well, we need to talk about Jim Manning's book too, because I feel like
definitely.
But Primary Target JFK is available at their website, and it's JFK Murder jamesfiles.weebly.com, and the first edition hardcover autographed with a thumbprint is available in it. And I believe these are going to be worth a mint someday. Because the truth is coming out, and I really also believe that Jim Manning's book is a huge release on the JFK assassination. Because if I could say there were three things that would prove this whole thing, one would be the pictures we've shown tonight of James Files with the Operation 40 group and Che Guevara. Two would be Jim Manning's book, where he re-releases the information that was released in the book Regicide, which is the Operation Zipper document. And then the third thing is, just a comprehensive, not only the book Primary Target JFK, but the comprehensive details that nobody else knew. You know what I mean? And so it's sad that we're having these technical issues tonight, cutting in and out. But Patriotism Unhinged is probably the only place you'll almost never find it. I'll let Jim talk about his own book, but man, to find the details of the Operation Zipper document, the only place right now you can get it at any of a reasonable price is Jim Manning's book, and his YouTube videos. The audience, man, they ought to go viral because Jim released the details about Chappaquiddick and about killing Mary Jo Kopechne and running the car over and all this stuff is covered in Jim Manning's YouTube videos, and that's not in his book, but the information about Operation Zipper, which was the CIA's plan to kill John F. Kennedy. The other thing too that we didn't get in a lot of detail, but David Atlee Phillips issued James Files the Remington XP-100 bolt-action pistol chambered in .221 Fireball that he used to kill John F. Kennedy. So a CIA-issued pistol was used to kill Kennedy. That was the final shot. The other shots were not CIA weapons. But go ahead, Jim Manning.
Well, when you talk about the things that prove it, one of the things that I believe is most important is that whenever the guy in the tower was talking to Mark Lane years ago, he said that he was in the tower and he heard a bang, and he also saw a big flash. And he said that brought his attention over to the fence, he said. And later, maybe a few minutes later, he brings it up again. He said, yeah, that flash is what really got my attention. Well, when Jim Scott sent that picture, which we had up a little while ago, of him shooting a XP, that sealed it for me that would be the thing that everybody would say, well, who else had one of those guns? And that's the flash that Lee Bowers is talking about. And that sewed it up. And so any lingering people, I've been pushing that today. Anyway, so
at least we got most of it done without it turning into spin and spin.
Thanks, Pamela and James Files.
Yeah. No, they're leaving, I guess. Well, anyway, this is my book, Patriotism Unhinged, and I'll tell you why it is important. Whenever the Central Intelligence Agency put Operation Zipper in effect, when they put it in effect, they didn't. Let's see. I dropped my microphone a minute ago. When they put it in they start again. The book Regicide came out.
You hear me now, Jim?
Yeah. The book Regicide came out in 2002. That was it wasn't a admission of guilt. It was wanting to take credit for the assassination of John Kennedy. And they did that because is Jim's wanting to talk? Is that?
Yeah, he keeps going in and out, unfortunately, though.
Yeah.
Pam, if you can hear us, mute your phone. You've got bad service there, and it's cutting in and out. And we can hear you talking.
Anyway.
Jim, man.
So this book was written by Gregory Douglas. However, it was all information that he got from one of the top men. His name was Robert Trumbull Crowley. And he wanted to take credit for it because he believed that the Kennedys had committed treason. And he didn't want it to come out until after his death. So he interviewed a number of people. He chose one. The one that he chose was somebody that was also an intelligence writer. He was born in Germany, but came over like when he was a baby. And he had written a historical book on Heinrich Müller. Now, Heinrich Müller was the head of the Gestapo. And in 1946, 7, whenever the United States engaged in Operation Paperclip, they brought over between 1,700 and 2,200 Nazi specialists, Werner von Braun, for example. But they had people that were in intelligence and rocketry and all. They brought them all over. And unfortunately, they didn't want anybody to know that they were bringing Heinrich Müller, the head of the Gestapo, in because of what it would do to the American Israelis. So they knew that he knew about that. And so they were afraid to go too far with him. They kept telling the agency kept telling Robert Trumbull Crowley not to talk to him. But anyway, he did anyway because he knew that was the right guy to do the book. So when he died, Crowley's son gave all of the documents that he had taken out of Langley because he was the main guy doing the paperwork on the assassination. So he had they were marked secret, top secret, and there's many documents, but the main ones have been hidden because when the book was published, they published 10,000 copies of it. And somebody at the CIA was asleep at the switch, and they started mailing them out to people who had pre-ordered them, and they sent them out to all of their customers who were bookstores and libraries. So what they did was they went immediately to the publisher. They commandeered all the books that were on that property. They made them give them a list of all the copies that were sent to bookstores. And they and other American agencies like the FBI and other ones went out and they picked up all the books that were in the libraries and in the stores. And then they weren't even happy with that, because they put an article, made an ad that they placed somewhere where they thought people that read a lot might see it. And it said that if you had a copy of Regicide, you could send it to them and they'd give you $100 for it. And so they come flying in. And so in order for me to get a copy, it took me 2 years. And I had to pay $300 for the copy of the book. Now, in that book, all the information that anybody would want and need on the assassination is in it. But recently, after my book came out, I started to see that it came out on Kindle. And since I had the book, I didn't go to Kindle and read it. And just last week, studying some European stuff that I do, I found out that it is published again on Kindle, but they had to take out 4 main sections of the book. So I think it's like, instead of having 250 pages, it's 139 or something. So all the good stuff is gone. And a lot of that was elements of Russian communiques between the United States back to Moscow, and then it was interpreted by the DIA, and so all of that information I don't think is probably going to get to Anna Paulina Luna that she's expecting, or maybe already has. But besides getting one of those books, which, like I say, are 2 years and $300, this book is the only other book that I know in the world that has that information in it. This is it. Now you can get this on Kindle for, I don't know, $8, $10. And I think the paperback is under $20. And they do have the hard copies too. So anyway, I make
You got
that
an audiobook too. Good job.
Yes, it's on audio. It's actually on 337 platforms around the world, and
Wow.
It's available in Germany. It's selling well in England, Australia, Canada, and also surprisingly in Japan, and also. I was told that anybody from those countries that asks for it in that language, they get it in that language. So we want to get the information out. It's not about making money. I can tell you, haven't made a penny on the book. It costs quite a bit to do this, to make a book. And the average book, when you self-publish it, and the reason it's self-published is because I own the copyright. The book that was written before Regicide was printed by a company. And so when you print it by a big company, they own half the copyright and the writer owns half the copyright. But they can sell their copyright to the government, and that's the end of the story. So I didn't do this to make money. I did it to get the information out. That's That's what I am all about. And so I'm hoping that we will get the call from the Anna Luna to come up there, because I think we can make it'll be a real eye opener. And it doesn't matter to the people up there whether the information is good for Democrats or Republicans. Everybody wants to find out how this really happened. And I thank you all.
Hey, Michael,
Yes.
can you hear me okay?
Yep.
All right, this is I've got 3 copies, and I've had 5 of them. 2 of them I've sold. Can you see it clearly?
Yeah.
Okay, so this is the original copy he was alluding to, Regicide, the official assassination of John F. Kennedy by Gregory Douglas. And these books, I've seen these sell on eBay for $450. Jim's book contains the most important part of this book, and you can find this online, Regicide, but it's had Appendix A has been removed. And if you want to, we probably should do a show in the future and talk just about this document, because Donald Trump said he was going to release all the JFK documents, and you probably can't see it very well, but the Appendix A in this book, this is the cover. There's a table of contents. The original book, and I'll hold it just up for a second. The original document is supposedly 92 pages long. The meat of it is 28 pages. It has the, what do you call it, Jim? The statement of, what's it called? Jim Manning's got really good YouTube videos about this. It's the statement of policy. And I'll read the first couple lines. But the magic of this document, okay, that is in the original book, this is the smoking gun document that proved the CIA killed John F. Kennedy. And I'm going to make another revelation right here. In a way, because of they operate under Title 50 of the U.S. Code, which means they can kill people that are a threat to U.S. Sovereignty and national security. Basically, what the CIA did is they had this kangaroo court, and it's called Operation Zipper. Probably 5 or 6 people knew about it. I would say Alan Dulles and James Jesus Angleton and John McCone, because he was the new DCI, Robert Trumbull Crowley, William King Harvey, and a couple others, the people at the FBI, J. Edgar Hoover. Lyndon Johnson was he was a conspirator, like cooperative. He was going to gain. He wasn't going to be indicted on all those murders and all that agricultural grant money that he had stolen from the government. And he was going to become the president of the United States. So he had a lot to gain. But this document that's in Jim Manning's book is the smoking gun that proves that the CIA killed John F. Kennedy. But why is that? Well, they operate under Title 50, not Title 10, like the U.S. military, that gives the U.S. military to go to foreign countries and kill people and is legal. Title 50 is what they use to do assassinations. So you would have to prove or accuse and convict somebody of high treason or some kind of, something of national security. And John F. Kennedy was sharing the presidential daily briefing from the CIA with the Russians. And that's what they said that he did. Now, it doesn't say that in this document, but that's what it was. Robert F. Kennedy Jr. recently released in an interview that the wires for the red telephone that was in his father's home that they used to talk to the KGB colonel, those wires are still, that telephone line is still in his home to this day. But in the statement of policy, it basically says the removal of the president and the attorney general, which would have been Robert Kennedy, from their positions because of high treason has been determined. This is the smoking gun that made it legal for the CIA to kill John F. Kennedy and Robert. And they did kill both of them. Sirhan did not kill Robert Kennedy. He was killed by a CIA operative named Thane Caesar. And Jim Manning's book, Patriotism Unhinged, is an update really to this book. If you can get your hands on this, once in a while they pop up on eBay. I look for them all the time. I've found them from $50 to $300, and I've seen them on there for $450, $500, but I'm not going to pay that for it because I already have 3 copies. And actually, I've had 5 copies, but sold 2 of them to friends of mine. Jim Manning's book is the smoking gun under Title 50 because the CIA needed a reason. So they had this kangaroo court. They convicted him of high treason. And now under Title 50, because he's an enemy of the state, so to speak, they can kill him. And that's what they did. But Jim Manning's book is brilliant. It's regicide, Section 2 is really what it is. But also it includes, so the first 6 pages are the statement of policy. And then there's a page of abbreviations for the code so you can decode the next several pages. There was a couple pages in there, and if you want to pull them up, there's 2 pictures I sent you of John F. Kennedy's head. So the Operation Zipper document, the first 5 or 6 pages are the statement of policy. Then there were photographs, autopsy photographs of JFK. Then there was all these notes of the meetings that were taken by Robert Trumbull Crowley, the deputy director for clandestine operations, at the CIA. And guys like that have to make some pretty serious decisions that involve national security. And I'll tell you one that was done by a friend of mine. I went to college at the Citadel in Charleston, South Carolina. I was just at my 45th reunion this weekend. I spoke with Nancy Mace, the Republican from South Carolina, and I'm talking to her director of operations now about getting to speak or to have us speak at this oversight committee in Congress and getting Jimmy to be able to be interviewed there. But a guy that was a class behind me in 1981 is Greg Vogel. And Greg is a college professor. It's on the internet. He's at the George Bush School of Intelligence at Texas A&M University now. He's retired from the CIA. He went to the Citadel, was in the Marine Corps. I won't tell you the whole story, but he went to the CIA. I think you worked with Greg in Afghanistan. He was chief of station there twice.
Chief of station in Afghanistan, yeah. Great guy.
Yeah, Greg, he is a great American. He won the, I think it's called the Distinguished Intelligence Star. It's equal to the Medal of Honor. He's the guy that saved Hamid Karzai's life in an accidental bombing. But Hamid Karzai, and this is the kind of decision the guy has to make. Greg didn't make this decision, but somebody came up with the idea that Hamid Karzai was going to be the president of Afghanistan after we overthrew the country. And that's what we did. And they put Hamid Karzai, they named the airport Hamid Karzai International Airport there. Okay? But Hamid Karzai is not what his biography says he is. When he was hired, basically recruited by the CIA to be the president of Afghanistan, he was a hot dog vendor on the mall in Washington, D.C. But the biggest reason that he was recruited by the CIA, it's absolutely true. Eric Prince verified that from Blackwater, okay? But when Hamid Karzai got recruited to be the president of Afghanistan, the biggest reason was, several reasons. He could speak English well, he was pro-American, all that kind of stuff. But his brother, which might actually be a half-brother, Waleed, is the biggest opium dealer in Afghanistan. And shortly before the United States pulled out of Afghanistan, the facility he was in was bombed and he was killed. Imagine that. But Hamid Karzai's brother, and I don't know if you know the story, but Karzai bugged out of Afghanistan right before it fell with millions of dollars in a private jet. So who knows? He's probably owns one of those big houses on the Intercoastal Waterway in Miami, I imagine, down there next to Zelensky's house. But he was a hot dog vendor. His brother was the biggest opium dealer in Afghanistan, and the Taliban had about run off all the opium poppy growers, before we went in there. But when we went back to Afghanistan, they were producing something like 3 to 5% of the world's opium. But by the time we left, they were producing like 97% of the world's opium. Now, what does that tell you? I forget the name of the city. If we'll do a show in the future and talk just about Operation Zipper and like Jim Manning's book and talk about the relevance and the weight of this document, there you go. Those would have been those autopsy photographs. That picture and the other one I sent you would have been. Now you can tell if you really look at that he was hit in the temple. Okay, it blew the whole backside of his head out. There's another picture that I sent you that's a 221 fireball from 29.3 yards, 88 feet from the picket fence, 50 grain bullet, boom. I got one of the boxes of the ammunition on my mantle back there. And I could show one of the XP100s if you want to. But Jim Manning's book, it reveals everything that this book, the CIA tried to cover up. Regicide, you can't find these books anywhere hardly. But Jim Manning's book's got it's all in there. And it's got that. So the first section was a statement of policy. Second section, there you go. That's what happens when a little 50 grain bullet going about 2,700 feet per second. And it was a mercury bullet too.
Mercury.
Yep. It was filled. You can make those easy. If you take I've got, actually when Walt Burger bullets are really famous right now, Burger match bullets. But when Walt started that company, he lived out near Tucson. There were high school kids in the afternoon that would come to his house and work in his garage. And he was making these handmade match bullets. But now it's a big bullet company. Somebody bought it and expanded it, and they got machines making them. But the original handmade Walt Burger match bullets, you can put mercury in them. You can put whatever you want. You can put water in them and freeze them. You can do whatever. All it takes is a bullet mold, and you just have to have the press to put them together. But going back to Robert Trumbull Crowley, if he hadn't released this document and then Gregory Douglas hadn't written this book, Regicide, I don't know if Jim Manning would have ever known about that kind of stuff. But God moved him to write this book, Patriotism Unhinged, I think. And I'll tell you, I think it ought to be the biggest bestseller in New York Times, history, because it is the smoking gun that proves that the government killed John F. Kennedy.
Well, there were other people involved too, like the oil barons, like Jim talks about in Chapter 8.
Yeah. There was a lot of reasons that they killed Kennedy. They wanted the Vietnam War. He wanted to get rid of the Federal Reserve. Marilyn Monroe's leaking the UFO stuff. Yeah, all that stuff. I mean, he just pissed off too many people, And go ahead, Jim.
I was just saying oil depletion allowance. Also wanting to team up with the Russians on space exploration. They had. I don't have a perfect answer on this, but I understand from some readings that they had started to decrease the number of nuclear they had at that time. They were going to get down to where they had a certain number, but it wasn't going to be as high as it is now. And so there was a lot of people, Israel, they were fighting like hell to get the nuclear bomb, and he wouldn't give it to them. And then it was another spy, our head spy, James Jesus Angleton, was spying for the Israelis and gave them what they needed to do it. So, they would turn around and kill him. But anyway, there's a list. I could probably make up like 12 different groups that were very happy that he was killed. Not to mention all the companies that were in the military-industrial complex.
That's right. And one of the ironic things, and Michael knows this, but I like to mention it when we get on this subject. After Kennedy was killed, they buried him at sea, And I've recently heard somebody said that because he was a Navy man, Robert F. Kennedy requested this. But nobody has ever made that public. And I think it was spite because he had mercury in his head, and if they left his body in the grave, but his body's not in his grave in Arlington National Cemetery. It's out in the ocean. But like you were talking about, there's a lot of people that wanted him dead, but I think it was a cruel joke. He was buried in a white concrete box that had holes in it. And if you go on Main Street, about a block from Dealey Plaza, there's a big JFK memorial there. And it's a white concrete box with these circles on it. Now, who in the world would think to memorialize John F. Kennedy's life by a white open box? That is, there it is right there. And all it is like 4 walls with gaps in it so you can walk into it. And all that is an inside joke to the people that know that they buried him in a concrete box off of, where is
Nantucket?
Yeah, Nantucket, yeah. Out there and it's probably not too far from where John Jr. was, because he was buried off a U.S. naval vessel, and Ted was there at the ceremony, I think. So
I don't think they killed him.
Who? John? They're saying he's still alive. I've heard that. I wish they would show it. I mean,
Who's
if
that?
they could bring it out. John F. Kennedy
JFK
Jr.
Who's still alive?
John F.
JFK
Kennedy
Jr. 's still
Jr. I
alive.
think he is.
Oh, yeah.
That maybe
Well,
they faked his death, maybe, because there was a rumor that Hillary was going to have him killed because she was trying to run. What is she?
Sure, yeah.
She's from Chicago. Her dad was associated with the mafia. She was the wife of the governor of Arkansas, and all of a sudden, New York elects her as their senator. That's as shady as it gets,
Yeah.
But anyway,
Boy.
All right, gentlemen. It's been an epic show, and we have to mute you, Jim. Get something strange going on with your.
Oh, well, I was just going to say, it's no wonder that the people of the United States can't understand that all these things could happen. It's just like a movie, to them. It's hard for them to believe. It was hard for me to believe. I mean, it took me 60 years to finally let it all sink in. And I tried to get somebody else to write this book. I'm not a writer, and couldn't do it for 5 years. And so I decided I'd take a shot at it. But almost everything that we talk about is something like, wow. And I'm now featuring on, because so many people now don't know about all the killings. And so I'm working off of, what's his name, the comedian? Belzer, yeah. Great book, by the way. Hit list, great book. I've been working off that list and building what I say are bricks. 2-3 people on each YouTube that I do. I tell why they were killed, who they were, if we know who killed them, and why. And the responses that I'm getting on YouTube are just fantastic. I never knew this. I never heard of that. If I ever get up to that Washington committee, I think I might start off with saying, how many of you that are on this committee know that Harmon Karzai sold hot dogs outside here? Because to them, that would be like, when I heard that, I said, oh my God. But Jim's right. They do things like that to show for like comedy, for comedy. Very few people know that. And so it's very hard when you're fighting millions of dollars. They have unlimited funds. And one thing that a lot of people don't know about the CIA, you mention any paper in the United States there's probably somebody from the CIA and then big papers like the New York Times and the Washington Post and, Chicago Tribune and all those papers. I bet you they have 15, 20 people. Most of them are in editing and they're in all different things they do, but they can see everything that's coming in and they can stop it. They can stop it. And that's why nothing gets out. And same things in the magazines. So with all that money and all those people that they can put in place, and it's very, very difficult to get anything out. And so I love internet because without the internet, there probably was never going to be a chance. But they didn't see the internet when this all happened, like they didn't see the technical advancement in photography. That people that took just little tiny 4x6 pictures in Dallas that day of the crowd or this, that, how they have been blown up to where we now see that W. Bush at 17 years old was in Dealey Plaza on the day of the assassination of the 35th president of the United States. And must have been CIA bring your kid to work day because his dad was also there with him. And Ed Lansdale all of a sudden is in Dealey Plaza, the head of the CIA and the government's black operations at that time. I mean, we wouldn't have these pictures. We wouldn't know all this. But anyway, enough.
Hey, Michael, I want to take like a minute to expound on one thing that Jimmy said. I never dreamed in my wildest dreams that he would expose that one thing. But our friend Daniel Facina texted me and he said, see if you can get Jimmy to comment about the Antarctica mission. Okay, so just for your audience, he was in Central America doing operations in the area where Hassenfusch was shut down. They were flying into Nicaragua. They're running cocaine. Okay, he gets this mission. His mercenary group, which was he worked for United Fruit Company under the name Colonel John Felter. Okay, that was one of his aliases. He had 32 different State Department passports with different names on them at the time. But on paper, his paycheck was to Colonel John Felter, and it went to the CIA's bank in Miami, then was transferred to his bank in Chicago where his family lived on his money. Okay, so he gets tasked to go to the South Pole. He goes down there, and they say, hey, we've got these hybrids. They're and he said he wasn't sure if they were hybrids or aliens, but they were in some kind of detention facility, and they had gotten out of their area, and they couldn't control them, and they couldn't get them back into whatever they were, like control rooms or a certain floor of the facility, but it was multiple floors underground. And they flew them out there. They give them their weapons. They said, this is what they look like. He said they had blue skin, and their skin looked like the hide of an elephant or rhinoceros. It was kind of like cracked. It was like a leathery, sort of, not like our epidermis, but like a leathery hide that they really had an animal look to them. And they couldn't control them. They were in the facility running loose. And he told them, go kill them. And his team went down there. They went down a few floors on elevators, and they went back and killed all of them. Then they went back up, had to sign non-disclosure agreements, and were told, okay, get back on the plane. And they were flown right back to Central America. It didn't last that long, just a couple days. In my wildest dreams, I didn't think he would disclose that, because he told me he didn't want it. And he's been on a UFO recovery thing too. And he doesn't want to talk about it because he feels like the average person that listens to this would go, oh, this is bullshit. There's no such thing as aliens, you know, that kind of thing. And he said, you lose your audience and people think you're crazy. So he never wanted to talk about that. And I said, do you mind if I tell the story after you die? And he said, yeah, you can. I don't care what you say after I die, you know. But one of our buddies texted me and said, see if you can get Jimmy to just in general terms, just verify that he did a hit for the government in Antarctica. He doesn't have to say what it was, but I was blown away that he admitted that they were the hybrids, because he didn't really know for sure what they were, but he said they weren't human. So that, to me, that kind of blows me away. I mean, that's a reveal that ought to be viral on the internet by tomorrow. It ought to be on Fox News, you know what I mean, and Newsmax or something. They say, we want to know more about that. But, you know, here we've talked about this stuff, like Chappaquiddick. We let out that Ted Kennedy didn't really drive off the bridge drunk, you know, that Mary Jo Kopechne was murdered and then driven off into the tidal pool. I actually sent an email with that information and that interview that Jim Manning did on YouTube to every newspaper in that area around Chappaquiddick, and gave them my phone number and everything. Not one of them called me back. So either they think I'm completely crazy, or like Jim Manning said, the CIA controls them and they know that they can't talk about this stuff.
Mm-hmm.
That's what it is. You know what I mean? They say, oh, my career will be over if I report this truth. You know what I mean? That's what it is. They don't have the guts to stand up and say, this is what our government is involved in. And we can fix it. We don't need to be doing, you know, some of this stuff, like, I don't know, they say that there's alien hybrids that live amongst us now. You know, that's been going on for a long time, you know. And all these other subjects that they talk about, you know, I don't think we should be afraid of any of it. You know, I mean, did we really go to the moon? I don't know. You know, I mean, there's so many things that you could talk about that are political, but I think when Jim revealed that tonight, I never thought he would reference to what they were, you know. But it really happened. It's amazing.
It is amazing. All right, gentlemen, thanks so much. Yeah, that one thing that he shared, that one thing alone is like, that's worth millions, trillions. It's a blowout. And thank you, gentlemen, because you guys have been on the cutting edge of this information, pushing the truth when the truth, a lot of people don't want this truth to get out there. So lots of bravery from both of you. And, you know, I and the rest of my audience in the world salute you. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Bye-bye.